Very good. Um, Since we've got a presentation ready to be up on the, our monitor, are we, up and running for WebEx?
Well, like I said, we had a little HDMI switch go out. So basically we had to directly connect, the gentleman that has a presentation. But we got the laptop running here and it's still recording and everything.
Okay,
It's just not directly hooked up to the TV.
so do we have anyone online?
No,
Present
there's
time?
nobody online.
Okay,
Nope.
is the mic open so that if anybody does pop online, they can hear?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it's online.
Very good. Right, we will call the Grant County Board of Commissioners to order Monday, July the 17th, noting all the three members present. If you would stand with us, we'll have our prayer. Mr. Wright is going to introduce our prayer this morning, and then I'm going to lead us in the pledge after that.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have Bill Sparks here with Gilead Ministries here to lead us in prayer this morning. Does a great job with cancer patients as well as other people. I'm a recipient of some of his works, his organization, due to my wife and having her stroke. So appreciate all that you do for our community, Bill, and your organization, what they do and what that means to all of us. Thank you.
Pray. Father, we're thankful for you because that's where hope comes from, and we're thankful for this day that you've given us. Air in our lungs, sight in our eyes, and the consciousness to be able to do the things we need to do. Thank you for that today. I ask for your grace and strength upon this body. May you continue to guide them and direct them to the decisions they need to make. I pray for those that are in attendance, God, that you would use them to do the good business for this county that we live in. And we thank you so much that you've loved us. We thank you so much that you've given us opportunity to have a government that watch over and take care and to guide others. Lord, we ask now for your blessing, for your strength, and for your grace upon this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Face the flag and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you, Bill, for bringing us today.
You guys, thank you.
Thanks. All right, we have our current claims minutes payroll. And I think that is the list right there. The pre-approvals that we have would involve July 10th, general batch in the amount of $66,652.58. Other batch in the amount of $14,006.
85 cents.
Did I say 58?
Yep.
Apologize.
Okay, no problem.
85 cents on the general. Other $14,658.45. And highway batch in the amount of $62,584.89 for a grand total of $143,896.19. That was pre-approved by our vice president, and we need a motion to ratify his pre-approval. I'll make that motion. I'll second that. All right. All those in favor would say aye. Aye. Aye, it is carried. We have today's invoice edit reports for the 17th, the general amount in the amount of $130,067.93. Other batch, $78,414.15. Highway batch, $101,731.59 for a grand total of $310,213.67. We need to have a motion to pay these bills.
I'll make a motion for the 17th.
Second.
Motion with support. Any questions on those invoices? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye. Aye. Aye, it is carried. We also have a pre-approval on payroll. That was payroll number 14. That was pre-approved on July the 5th, paid out on the 7th in the gross amount of $581,345.90. We we would need a motion to ratify the pre-approval.
I'll make a motion to ratify pre-approval of payroll number 14.
I will second that. All right. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it is carried. And we do not have minutes that we're ready to adopt at this particular time, so that covers that agenda item. Communications from boards and elected officials. We'll start with the auditor and move around the room. Anything from the auditor's office?
Nothing to report.
All right. Other elected officials? Not hearing anything. EMA?
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
A couple things to just bring you up to speed on. I know I haven't made the last couple meetings, but we did put out some information last week regarding the solar eclipse in 2024. We're in the process of putting together a task force, planning task force for that. The state has given us guidance. We've been meeting with them really on and off since last November, and I know Commissioner Wright has had some meetings locally, and we have reached out again to Mary Eckerly at the public library, and she is, her and Kylie Jackson both will be working to kind of spearhead that from the private sector side. Public sector will take care of here. So that, more to come on that in the coming months for sure. One other thing, I guess a couple other things. FEMA and IDHS were here last Friday and did present my office and also Charlie Myers from YMCA with a certificate of appreciation for helping them through the some of the tornado recovery efforts and those kind of things. So they did pass that along. Thought I would share that with you today. The only other thing I have is just a heads up for commissioners and Madam Auditor, just to give you a heads up that HMEP grant, which is the Hazardous Material Emergency Preparedness Grant, is not open yet. We expect that soon. As soon as we get that, we will let you know. And I have a meeting Wednesday with the LEPC, and we'll discuss potentially what we may want to do with that grant opportunity. So.
What was that grant again?
Hazardous materials, emergency preparedness.
Thank you.
That really goes hand in hand with the LEPC, the Local Emergency Planning Committee.
What do we use that money for in the past, just educational purposes?
Mostly education, however, they do allow us with a special exception. We did buy some Class A suits to replace suits that were outdated for the hazmat team, and we have bought monitors before in the past, so. We can petition the state and ask for a waiver, but other than that, it's really for training and preparedness.
Is that a set amount of money for?
It is not, well, once we get the grant funding, there will be there'll be an amount set, but we don't know what that is at this
Yeah.
point. I think last year it was around 15,000, I think.
Okay.
Other questions for EMA Director?
None for me.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other elected officials, department heads, special committees? Hearing none, we will move on. Marcus, IT?
Oh, I'm running the meeting from upstairs. I don't have anything today.
I am smiling, Marcus.
I can see you.
All right, Highway Department, Dave.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, first order of business I'd like to take care of is the bid opening for Bridge 16, Allen County Road EOOW between 6 and 700 North. The first bid opening I received, I'm going to open is from Hoosier Pride Excavating. Their bid proposal is $566,837 and 33 cents. Next company I have is Milestone Contractors. Their proposal is $890,465.36. Next contractor, R.L. McCoy. Their proposal, $877,717.76. Last company is Duncan Robertson. Their proposal, $601,579.72.
I anticipate that you'd like to take this under advisement and
Well, what I'd like to do is I have United here today, so they're gonna review the lowest bid and make sure all the numbers and quantities are correct. And then at the end of the meeting, we'd like to bring a
recommendation
recommendation,
back.
if that's all right with you gentlemen.
We've done that in the past, that's appropriate.
And this is a community crossing grant, so, I would like to get this signed off, because we have to have it done before August 10th, so I can get the information back to them, so. The other couple of things is that all right with you?
I think by consent, we'll allow that to sort of come back to us at the end of the meeting.
I do have one more unofficial detour, for State Road 22, Deer Creek next spring. If you remember, this is one I told them it'd been nice if they would have done them together, since they just did one a quarter mile down the road, so. I guess one thing I probably will put in the email, since Bobby's been talking about the eclipse thing, maybe if they could wait till after that date to start the project. I don't know if that's something that
After
they.
April the 8th.
Yeah.
I got the date down, don't I?
I was gonna say it'd be nice if we could kind of hold off, but I don't know if they'll do that or not, so. At least say something.
You would think on their part they would want to do.
But you'd think, especially since it's one of the main arteries through the county and east and west and through Howard County and everywhere else, so.
We would have to, do we have paperwork to sign or just have to adopt?
Same second page, I believe. I can't remember. if
Yes.
it's three
All
or,
three signed.
yeah.
We would need a motion to accept the unofficial detour proposed by NDOT for the 100 West. Well, I would just say the actual bridge, or US 35 bridge over Deer Creek, 2.5 miles north of State Road 9.
So moved.
Second.
Motion with support. Any further discussion on the NDOT official detour? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye. 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 Sign off and keep going.
Okay, just to update you on our chip sale program, we should complete it today. We are gonna go to the town of Fairmount and do some work for them the next couple of days, depending on the weather. So really hard to get that done. They did almost 80 miles this year, so we'll get started on that. The log jam I got scheduled for next Monday on that, to hopefully get the logs out underneath Branson Street, if everything works all right. And the other thing I was gonna update you, I did finally get an email this morning on the wind farm from the company that was gonna do the inspection. And actually, what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna forward that agreement to them, and, cause they said they might have some ideas of some stuff that wasn't added to make sure that it's in there for the agreement for the wind farm thing, so.
So just to clarify, this is the one over in Blackford County. This is gonna be using some of our street. We're not doing one.
Right, yep,
I want to make sure everybody understood that.
yep. So just some of the roads they'll be using in Grant County, so. So I'll get back with him, and hopefully next meeting we can have something ready to go on that, so. The other thing I was gonna bring up is Chapel Pike, the lady out there with the water problem. I'm still working with that. We had utilities located a couple weeks ago, and, we have a 6-inch high-pressure gas line on the south side of the project, and we have 3 fiber optics on the north side. So we're trying to see where we can go and how we can get under through everything kind of thing, so.
It's not surgery, but it's very delicate.
Yes.
Excavation work.
Yeah, the big thing with the gas line is they want so much cover on top, which I kind of agree with, so we don't know if we're gonna have to try to work outside of that and make sure we have enough cover and be low enough to drain the water out of the field, so we're still working on that. So.
Okay.
That's all I have unless you gentlemen, like I said, we'll
Anything else?
bring
Thank
up
you for your assistance on that.
yeah, I was saying at the end of the meeting, I'll bring up proposal if that's all right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that covers our first segment. Under old business, Dwayne Ashcraft, EMS job classification discussion.
Actually, gentlemen, I think it's all taken care of. Madam Auditor has graciously addressed the issue. We're trying to, our schedule, we've got to run on 72 or 12 hours a day, so didn't quite meet the job classification. So I think the lady there has got it all taken care of.
The lady took care of you.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah, what do we say? I thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks to our auditor. All right, we can go to new business. I'd just like to note, special request here, between items 3 and 4. We'd like to, put in, Mr. Soltz and Mr. Randy Miller question they have out of property out at, Fairmount. We'll do that prior to, the jail study presentation. That'll help them. And I think that'll help us so that we don't have to break things up in our discussion direction. So first up, food vendor request, Stephanie Lair. Which way did I say it?
It's Lar,
Lar.
yeah. My name is Stephanie and I run and own Sprinkled by Stephanie and recently also doing business as Cheese All That, Walk It Out, and Thirst Trap for food trucks. I have just a small flyer, just a sample menu so you guys can see what I serve. I've been in business since 2019, launched the food truck in 2020, and this is my 3rd year. Through my daughter getting her marriage license last month, she spoke with Pamela Harris, which forwarded me all the information about setting up once a week downtown on the square or every other week or whatever. Fits what's needed in the community to offer lunch for people to be able to eat. I offer gourmet grilled cheeses, cheesecake on a stick, frappuccinos, drinks, cheesecake smoothies, cheese, all that.
You are looking for an opportunity to be on the square at certain times, or?
Yes. Primarily during lunch, if it's possible. I'm doing the Magic by Monica Market this Saturday. I have also participated in like the Fall Fest for Marion. I do a lot of events in Gas City as well, in Kokomo.
And are there particular days? Are you looking at every day of the week? What are you?
No, I'm looking for once a week.
Once a week?
Once a week, preferably for me on a Thursday or a Friday. I know a lot of people, you know, they get paid, they want to spend more money, which is profitable for me as well. So, a Thursday or Friday, but I'm open to any day of the week. Once a week or maybe once every other week, and I would like to rotate the businesses out with Cheese All That and Walk It Out. Cheese All That, as I gave you sample menus for, serves the gourmet grilled cheeses, and the cheesecake on a stick. And then Walk It Out is quesadillas, walking tacos, and hot dogs. My food truck goes, it's universal, so it can be swapped out. It's not branded, it's branded with a banner, so I can swap them all out.
And you're thinking like 11 to 2?
Yes.
We have had other food vendors make that request. Last couple of years, it seemed like they had asked for Wednesdays, but there's no rhyme or reason that we have to follow when it comes to a vendor requesting. We just need to pick one of those days. You have a preference on that Thursday or Friday, whatever you prefer?
I prefer Friday, but if the city has a different preference, I'm open to that as well.
Do we ever get any pushback from downtown restaurants to have a food truck come in?
I have not received any.
I mean, I just no. Okay. I mean, you know, they're in business and, you know, collecting taxes, things like that. Don't believe, do we receive any tax money from, your truck service or anything
No.
like that? No.
No, I didn't know if there was a fee or a donation that you expect me to make back, a percentage. I know in past places that I've done, sometimes they require a donation of my sales or, you know, things like that.
And I required that our other
I think
vendors.
that would be up to you if you would like
Okay.
something to a not-for-profit or something like that. We're not gonna tell you, you gotta make a donation. By no means.
I appreciate the restaurants that are downtown, but you don't have a huge selection down here, so.
Okay.
I think it sounds like Stephanie's asking for Fridays. And are you self-sufficient? Do you need any type of electricity or anything like
I
that?
am self-sufficient. I do run off of a generator. However, if the generator is gonna present a problem, then I would need a 220. Because the generator is loud.
220 available, they're, Fifth Street Commons.
No, and we have not had problems with vendors using their generators in the past, so.
But you would want to be on the square. There's no 220 square that I'm aware of. Vince, pardon me? 220 on the square, we don't have 220.
Northeast corner.
Northeast corner?
Do you want to start this Friday?
No, the following Friday would be ideal for me.
Okay.
I'm wrapped up with the event for Magic by Monica downtown this Saturday, so Friday I'll be preparing for that. So ideally next Friday.
Vince will have to mark off spots for you.
Yeah, how much area does your truck take?
My truck is a 16x8. And then, of course, the tongue of the trailer, because it's not, it's a pull behind. So I would need adequate room to get it in there and drop it, of course. And then the actual trailer is, like I said, 16x8. With the tongue, it's probably 18x8.
So we're having a request to start vending services, July the 21st, I believe it is, Friday the 21st.
It's 28.
Oh, that's this week I'm looking at, I'm sorry. So the 28th, end of the month. And, through the, regular season,
Yes, through the end of October.
very good.
You need a motion?
We would need a motion for that, yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the request as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion with support. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye. Aye. Aye, it is carried.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Auditor, we're reviewing annual fees for Lao.
Yes,
This is our annual fees for our financial and tax systems. It also includes the attendance, the AOD, the new timekeeping system, which I believe will be paid through the commissioner's budget, contractual. The rest of it comes out of the auditor's budget. And this is just an estimate.
I think I heard all the right things. Didn't come out of our budget, right?
The AOD does, yes.
AOD does. Okay. Other than that, you're pleased with the services and ready to go another
Yes.
term of engagement, okay?
Can we get brought up to speed? They talk on the attendance on demand, how we coming on that? We're still doing both systems at this point.
Actually, Angie would probably be better, so.
Okay,
Corey has been able to get all of the county offices here in the annex entered in, and they are utilizing the system. She just started bringing on the courthouse last week,
I think so.
so she's still working with the courts and prosecutor and those offices to get them into the system and using it daily.
okay.
It's a work in progress, but
I
it's,
was gonna ask, how's it coming? And
it's doing fine. I
okay,
mean, we're not having any issues so far, so anything we do run into, we work it out with the AOD, the company that's doing our system.
good, okay.
So we would need a motion to approve the WOW agreement for the next year. Is it annual?
I'll make the motion that we would support the Lau Associates agreement. I don't see a total here, and I take it that that's because of the estimated cost, is that correct?
Yeah, it's $142.91 for the auditor's portion, and then a $28,000 for the AOD.
I would put that in form of a motion, we accept our contract.
I'll second Mr. Wright's motion.
Motion, Mr. Wright, second, Mr. Stewart. Any other questions? Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and you have an original that we need to sign, or, okay, we'll sign that following the meeting and go from there. Thank you. We're going to put in Mr. Soltz and Mr. Mueller at this point so that we can have that discussion. Randy, if you don't mind passing anything out you need to share with us?
Yes, thank you.
Just for the record, if you'll tell us who you represent.
I will indeed.
Thank you.
When we get up there.
Thank you, sir.
Keith Miller, Randall Miller and Associates, Surveying Engineering. And I appreciate you guys allowing us to have this discussion. It's not really a request. I don't know that this will ever come before you, but it may. Hopefully I can help resolve some of the issues or disputes that's going on in Fairmount. Mr. Soltz had contracted with our firm to do a property boundary survey at Third and Main Street in Fairmount. We conducted it, and actually I have recorded the survey, and you have a copy of the recorded survey in front of you. You also have a GIS sheet that might be able to show you some of the issues. In essence, what we have is an alley that meanders. It happens all over the United States, happens lots of places. And in this particular case, it's, probably was bowed out, if you can see the diagram where it shows as a stone. And, maybe for a tree, it could have been for lots of different reasons. But, and alleys have a tendency to migrate anyway, where they put the stone or where it's pushed, you know, you drive, sometimes it pushes over, next thing you know, you're driving. So it's migrating, but interestingly enough, when it gets past, my client's property, it gets back inside the right of way. The alley isn't very big there in the first place. And, a dispute has arisen, with Mr. Souls wanting to, in essence, reclaim his property. He's went to the town council and, had some very interesting discussions with them. And the result of, as I'm told, I wasn't at the meeting, was that they would realign the alley. And if they did realign the alley, then Mr. Souls could put his fence up on his property line, which would be the north side of the alley, the darker line. I have spoken with the contractor for the property owned to the south of the alley, Lisa Craig. The contractor is Jeff Hutchins, and I gave him a copy of the survey, and I said, you know, we've got a little bit of an encroachment, if you will, of the steps. It shows the very northwest corner of the steps being 2.25 north of the line, and the corner of the deck is 0.4. I think Mrs. Craig is actually rehabilitating the house and fixing the house up so she can live in there, and this was just an add-on to get up to the deck. I think they added the deck on. I think they went through the planning commission and received a permit to do that. I don't know that the permit and the actual location of the physical improvements is the same. There might be some dispute there. Mr. Souls had started to put a fence up, and someone had put a cease and desist sign on one of the posts. I did tell Mr. Souls that, in essence, the alley has what's called a prescriptive easement. And a prescriptive easement is not a fee simple or ownership. It's merely a right to use. Again, with alleys, they kind of meander depending on where you drive that day or where they put stone. So I think Mr. Souls called me about 8:30 this morning and asked me to come, and I said I would come and explain to you the survey. There has been another surveyor out of Muncie, Hal Ashton, who has agreed with where our survey was, so there's confirmation of where the corners are and where the lines are, so that helps settle that matter. Thank God we didn't have a dispute that I'd have to deal with. Understand that I am a professional land surveyor. I am not an attorney. I do not advocate for anyone. I do not advocate for Mr. Souls, and I do not advocate for Lisa Craig. My job is to show the facts. I cannot take a position one way or the other. I'm here to just advise people and help them and show what the facts are. In this particular case, we've got an alley that meandered out. There's potentially or probably some prescriptive easements to it. The town has said, after much discussion, debate, and consternation, if you will, that they were going to realign the alley. So I'm hoping that the resolution to this is that they realign the alley, and Mr. Souls can then extend his fence and put his fence on and protect his property. He does intend to improve the property and put a house or two on those big lots, very large lots. It would be capable of holding 2 or more houses. So if you have any questions, I'd certainly be able to answer them for you. I think Commissioner Stewart asked Jerry to be here, and Jerry said, well, let's get Randy here. You know, I had told Mr. Souls that I'd be glad to go to the Fairmount Council and kind of tell them the same thing that I told you guys, that, you know, there's always a way to solve the problem. And if we can get that realigned, then that will
probably help. It's not, you're talking about 100 foot of alley. And it would be pretty easy to resolve the situation. And, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just here to present the facts, tell you what I know, the history, keep things calm, try to show a resolution, to try to help out, bring Mr. Stewart up to snuff on what's going on. So, you guys have any questions for me at all? If not, then.
Appreciate the information, and I'm kind of still working on the fly on this, but here's my assumption, and I'll get some relief here in a minute.
Sure.
We would not hear anything like this unless there was no resolution from the town. And is there any jurisdiction with area plan, since Fairmount is in that jurisdiction, Mr. Mallett? So area plan would be the second, and then we would be kind of sort of the final recourse. Is that fair to say? Or would it be done at area plan?
And well, again, with Kyle, I don't know that any authorities lie here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our first priority and defense will be with the town council.
I think so too.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just if it elevates any farther, then you might be involved. I don't know. Again, Mr. Stoltz just asked me to come here and give you the survey, walk you through it, answer your questions. Again, I've told the town council, and maybe Mr. Stewart might have more influence than us, I would gladly sit down with them and walk them through exactly the same thing that I've told you guys and try to help the situation. It seems like there's an easy remedy to it, but, it's kind of, you know how things push and shove
And the more information that is available helps to make the decision.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think the Plan Commission has, in Fairmont, I don't know if they have a requirement for fencing. I don't think they have jurisdiction over that, on fencing. They do on houses and things like that, because I think the Plan Commission handles.
We require our yards and setbacks required.
Yeah. Things like that, just the typical Plan Commission requirements that we have in the airway zoning ordinance that I help write. So,
Did you say you were planning on attending the next?
if they ask me to, I'll be glad to. I think he's had a little bit of trouble getting on the agenda. Things have risen to a little bit of a hotter temperature than I'd like to see it. And I'd gladly try to help resolve this issue. I'm a professional land surveyor, and I did a survey, and the next thing you know, we've got issues, and I'm trying to help resolve those issues if I can. It seems like a pretty simple, and in fact, it's my understanding, Jerry told me that, the city said, yeah, we're gonna just straighten the alley. So the sooner they could get that done, the sooner I think that would resolve it. There is like I said, there's a little bit of a issue with the steps going over. If it doesn't obstruct traffic too much, maybe it can stay. I don't know. That's an issue that they'd have to work out, So if I can answer any questions for you guys, or just, what I'm trying to do is just bring you up to speed on where we're at.
I think Mr. Stoltz would like to make a statement or question.
Yes. I'm Garrett Schultz. We do own a property on North Main Street. We own some other property. I've been told by Area Plan, Mr. Malott, several different agendas or what's right and what's not right, what the ordinances are and what the ordinances are not. I was told by Nicole Bailey, who was over there one day, who worked for Mr. Malott, that they had no jurisdiction over what I do on my property because it was a civil matter. Then she said, but if I had a jurisdiction over, I wouldn't like to do this because we had a survey. We put up stakes through the line on a survey. The contractor had big equipment. They bring in dumpsters and stuff. They kept running over the stakes and the surveys we had to try to keep them. They had a big hole on the side of their house that they didn't fill for a long time. I was told by Area Plan that the lady wasn't married to the steps. Well, the steps are still in the alley. I can't finish my fence. I can't claim my property. For some unknown reason, they haven't got their survey back yet, which was supposed to be a 5-week delay. In April, it was gonna be 5 weeks to get their survey done. It still wasn't back at the last meeting. I asked for the council meeting before, I was told that I was the most hated man in town by Eric Treon on the town council because I'm trying to claim my property back. Now, if the area plan has no jurisdiction over this, why does the area plan put a stop order on the fence for me and not the steps? Now, when I went to get the permit, the copy of the permit that Ms. Craig got for her house and her property, which is fine, I want her to have a nice house. But I don't want them encroaching into the alley and keep taking my property back away from me and then tell me I can't do something, but she can have a set of steps that's 2.5 feet out into the alley. Now, the alley's only 10 feet wide. You take 2.5 feet out of it, where are they gonna go? I was told also by the town marshal over there, when he looked at the survey and the survey stakes, he said, I can see there's a tree and there's steps in the alley, and he said, when we get the survey back, you're gonna have to clean this rocks and stuff out of your yard. I said, yeah, apparently, but they won't let me go ahead. I was told also by Mr. Malott that if I took the sign down, he'd fine me $500, and it didn't matter, I had enough money, I could probably pay a fine. I probably can, but that's neither here nor there. What's right's right and wrong's wrong. You either have jurisdiction or you don't. But to get back to when I went to get the copy of the permits. When the first time I went up to ask about them, I said, oh my gosh, there's no sketches here. There's supposed to be sketches. Then I was told, oh, so-and-so did it, and he shouldn't have issued that permit. Then the next time I go back, there's a sketch that Hutchins sent in that don't know when, but it shows the house sitting parallel with the alley and 20 feet off the alley. Now, you look at the GIS and see that it's not 20 feet off the alley. It's not running parallel with the alley. And this has all been brought to area plans and the town of Fairmount. And then the next time I go, oh, somebody marked on this GIS picture in the felt marker that shows they are encroaching into the alley. They need a variance. They had a survey by Randy Miller done previous, which Randy Miller had not surveyed the property. Now, does the area plan continue to issue permits that are bogus and valid? Also, the extra building she got a permit for on the back of her house was laid out to do one way, and then they turned it 180 degrees. Now, a lot of this work was done without inspections. There's a note on one of the permits that says some work was done and they didn't call for an inspection, done previous to an inspection. Some of this work was done before inspection. There was no inspections on that property from, I think, November of last year until April of this year, when I brought to somebody's attention that they're encroaching on our property, they had trusses laid on our property, they were parking on our property. We paid too much money for that property, put a nice house and stuff on it, for everybody to just abuse it. And
we don't want anyone abused, Jerry. The big thing that we have to wrestle with is that we have to take it to the authoritative level, which is at the town council. That's where we're gonna have to start. Once we get that decision made, then there may be an appeal process that you need to go through, but I'm hearing hopefully that they're ready to get this taken care of in some form or fashion.
I think, Jerry, I think what I can do or should do is maybe I can write an official letter from my office requesting to be on their agenda, go and have that conversation with them, give them what my potential resolution is, and
at least he'll start the process of trying to mitigate the circumstances.
And I think we do. You're right. We mitigate at that
Yeah,
local town level
Yeah.
and go from there.
Yeah.
So I'm pleased with the direction you're heading. I would encourage you to do that because, again, the initials that we have gotten from our attorney is that we don't handle this at this level, so.
no, I think there's just some contributing factors that are involved in all of this, and he asked me to show up, so I thought I would come here and try to explain at least what my perceptions of the issues are. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
One more question. Can I ask who's your attorney?
Mr. Kyle Persinger?
And it's time, he's also the one for the town of Fairmount. He's the one that sent me a letter, sent my wife and I a letter asking us to please remove our equipment until the survey was done. Now, that was May the 1st. I got, he issued the letter. And he was your surveyor, he's he's your lawyer, he's a town of Fairmount lawyer. And I think at the time he was representing the area plan too.
Yes, and he is no longer doing that.
Yeah, so there's a direct conflict of interest. The warranty deed and title that we got when we purchased that property from Mr. David Fox, Paul David Fox, came from their office. Herb Spitzer did all the paperwork to tell us what was ours and what wasn't. We got a warranty deed through the title company or whatever saying it was ours. Now, I don't know, attorneys talking a different language than everybody else.
Well, I would encourage you to get with the council and hopefully they will, live up to what they've said in directing to get that alleyway repositioned. Ryan, did you have a comment?
I was just gonna, Jerry and I have spoke, still waiting to get the surveys back from Fairmount. But as far as the steps that are in question, Ms. Craig has said she'll remove them. They do have to get a variance on the deck. The fence that's being built is directly on the property line. Is required to be 2 foot off. So, I mean, we are trying to work, like I said, I've spoken to Mr. Schultz numerous times. The only reason there is a stop work order up, and I think you guys have received pictures, is anytime that alley and we start squeezing it till we can't get ambulances and fire trucks and such through, we create a safety issue. Stop work order went up so that we didn't have a safety issue. As I told Mr. Schultz, not gonna put one life in danger. So area plans end of it is why that's up.
Okay. We will kind of rest on the direction of, the town council and hopefully they can resolve quickly. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
We will move back into the regular, business agenda for, today, and we have a jail study presentation. It says Dale Davis from Kenboy, but actually it's gonna be we still have. Oh, I apologize.
You want to address the highway department first, if they're ready?
I actually have I'm sorry, an area plan that I forgot. I was sorry. Okay. Go ahead, Ryan. I apologize.
Well, I'm coming back for the major litigation. I talked to Angie when I went to the council, and Angie said that we were doing a line item for the major litigation for the attorney. So now I'm back here, kind of doing like ping pong.
Okay.
The council and
What I understood is that we were going to ratify Mr. Glickfield's legal services today.
Right.
Is that what we're?
for the major litigation.
And that's the What I've got in here is agreement to provide legal services. We need to vote on that.
This here, yes, it's an agreement, for the area planning attorney. So any agreement has to be approved by the executive body, which is commissioners.
Okay. So Chuck and David already signed paperwork on this?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I went to the council first and they said, well, that's contractual. So I came back here and you guys sent me back to the council. And then when I was up in front of the council and Angie said, oh, no, we've already got that going in the commissioner. So we didn't talk about it.
So before us is to just go ahead and sign the contract, Mr. Glickfield, going from $15,000 a year for 12
Well,
months.
this would be above area planning budget, 20,000 for him annual.
Correct.
This is your major extraordinary, if we get sued for something specific, this would be your.
I think we're talking about,
We're talking two different things here. That's why I wanted to clarify. In front of us is an agreement to provide the local services. And my understanding, that would be a contract for area plan, to hire Mr. Glickfield at $20,000 a year, correct?
Right.
That's what this is.
Right.
I think that's the first thing that we need to discuss, a separate motion probably. And then the second one is what you're wanting is above and beyond, correct? Correct? In other words,
We had previously, our past two attorneys, we didn't have contracts. From what I see, when we had the mud yard come through and that issue come through, former Director Strange had come up to the commissioners, and you guys had given him like $40,000 for the attorney fees for that situation. So this, with us doing a contract now with David Glickfield, it was brought up, I think, much like Kyle has with you and the council's attorney has the same, me, has the same for a major litigation, something that may be beyond his normal duties.
and so under 5 here, under the compensation, you're saying anything above his normal duties, it would be at the $150 an hour.
Right.
So just pointing that out to you, gentlemen, that this is a contract for the $20,000, but also, if we did come into more litigation on a project, that he would be compensated at $150.
and Kyle.
Not
Our
just
system
him.
functions the same way
Did he?
with the commissioners, yeah. If there's anything above and beyond, he has another rate that you'll pay.
Gotcha.
And this doesn't necessarily just mean Mr. Glickfield. If the good example would be, say, we have something solar come out and we need someone who specializes in that type of litigation, this is what we would pay that attorney.
And or if there's a conflict of interest that Mr. Glick can work on that,
Right.
that fund would be tapped as well.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page. This is a little muddy than just a straight contractor for $20,000. I mean,
Right.
So we've got two different issues. I think we approved the contract first, and then we talked about the catastrophic or special line item.
And that's what you're talking about, on the line item, creating funds for that particular thing, correct?
Creating, how much funds are we talking about creating?
How much did you think we needed in the special line item?
I think it's there for that extraordinary event.
I mean, technically, you can put a number in there. You don't use it, it goes back to the correct. Or you put a number where you know it's likely if there's a suit going on, you need to bring it back for additional appropriation anyway.
So does that need to be in our budget as a line item, just in case?
It'd be up to you guys and the auditor as far as how you want to handle it. So you have a legal contractual that pays Mr. Persinger's salary. And that's just for him. He charges us quarterly. And you have another line item for legal services. That's in the event that you would have to hire someone outside of him or it goes above and beyond the agreement.
That's the 150 per hour.
Yeah. So you would either put it in that legal services line item or have a completely separate one. And I don't know what that looks like from your perspective, but I'm assuming you would it'd be easier to have a separate one.
It would just be easier to have it all under legal
So
services.
you would add to the legal services that already exists.
That makes sense?
So, and yes, it does, but this in front of us, is this just a contract for Mr. Glickfield, or is this? Okay, so let's leave out the legal side, right? For anything above. If he did go above and beyond, then it would be at $150 in this contract.
Right.
To Mr. Glickfield.
Right.
Can we vote on that first?
Yes.
And then we'll talk about the other.
I think that's what's confusing.
If that makes sense. That's correct.
Yeah, because we've got,
Kind of wrapped in this whole thing.
yeah, the language states attorneys, but then where you sign, it's just specifically for Mr. Woodfield.
Correct.
And I think Kyle put this together. And I think it's basically what he has with you guys already, if I'm not mistaken. It is. Okay.
And again, I'm comfortable with this. I just getting into the other, I think if we go ahead and take action on this and then get into these other requests. So if the chair is ready for a motion.
Absolutely.
I would approve the agreement to provide legal services, by Mr. Glickfield to the APC. I would make that in the form of a motion.
I second. With support to approve the agreement to provide legal services between the APC and Mr. Glickfield. Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor would say aye. 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 It is carried.
Now, let's kind of get into, I think, what we need to discuss as a group for any kind of additional cost. What is that number? Do you put a number in there? I'm sure the county council, would they want a number in that?
Well, you currently have an appropriation for legal services, and I think that in the
60.
past,
I think it's 60 off the top of my head.
yeah, I'm not
And so
sure.
if we
You would just,
that, we would just
Yeah.
go back for an additional appropriation.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we don't need to really take action on that? Is that correct? Or-
Yeah, it's when we get in a pinch, then we come and ask.
Right.
That's what,
And you're looking for the commissioners to take that risk?
I think
for
we're,
them.
we're just trying to put it in place as opposed to a lawsuit comes up and then I'm in
Yes.
here saying, hey, now we've got a lawsuit.
Right. It's not you going back to the county council saying, I need more legal
Right.
money, right? You're wanting the commissioners to come up with those dollars.
I come here first because that's what we had done last time.
Okay. I'm good with that.
right now, we have an amount of money. As we are working into the future, if we think that we need an additional line item, we can work that into
Okay.
25 budget if we need to, but the way we've done it is, if we need to, we draw from that money. If we need more, we go back.
Okay. So really no action needs to be taken at this time then? None? Okay. I think you got what you needed?
Yep.
Mr. Malone? Yes?
Thank you, sir.
I think so.
Okay.
Now, do I need to go back to the council for anything?
Not right now.
Couldn't say.
No, we'll have to wait till later on in the year to see if you're gonna have available funds for transfers to cover the additional.
For this year? Right, yeah. I knew that. I just wanted to make sure.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Sorry, gentlemen, to be jumbling this. If you have a report. Yes. DLZ and Envoy have been gracious enough to.
I will take a few minutes for you. With the help of Chris from United, I'd like to recommend that Who's Your Pride excavating get the bid, which was
$562,837.33.
That's it. So, and if you do pass it, then I need your signatures, all three of you.
Okay. We have a recommendation, gentlemen.
I'll make that motion.
Motion, Mr. Stewart.
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Wright. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor would say aye. Aye. Aye, it is carried. We're signing the paperwork.
I'll get it submitted to NDOT and get our money coming.
Quite a difference in price. I mean, over $300,000.
And the cost estimate from the, was right at the 890.
Engineer's estimate was 865. 692. And everything was in there. I mean, it needed to be in there, because like I say, you come up $300,000 difference in a quote. What,
Well,
did somebody miss something? And that's what you guys are taking a look at, correct?
Correct.
That they did not miss anything.
Yeah,
just,
there's a difference. We use software based on not prices and local jobs. We have lower unit prices than in that job.
Yeah.
I think the previous project for 79 was about 160,000 below the engineer's estimate as well. The last community on the bridge.
Okay.
well, we kind of noticed that the prices have come down in the last couple of years with everything, so.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. How many times have I asked this now? We're ready for Envoy and DLZ, right? All right. Gentlemen, please come and help us.
Good morning. My name is
Good morning,
Jonathan
John.
White, Vice President of Construction Convoy. And we have asked DLZ to come here and do a presentation of your assessment of the existing facility. And there'll be a high overarching overview of the assessment, and then we'll open up the floor to questions. So that'll turn it over to Mr. Rax.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have two documents in front of you today. One is our presentation, which you have, and then the other one is the full study that we did. Unless we want to talk for 3 or 4 hours, we'll just do the presentation part instead of the full document. All right, so I'm Eric Ratz from DLZ.
Sir,
Also-
extra copies of your presentation.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I see.
Yes. All right, so I'm Eric Ratz from DLZ, and also Mike Trevino, also from DLZ, who's here today. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to you about your jail study. We came up here with architects, structural, mechanical, electrical folks. We walked all through your existing jail as well as the juvenile facility that was built, about 23 years ago. And what we did was we spent a lot of time looking at an assessment on the facility. And the purpose of that assessment was to look at what type of things might be necessary to improve the facility, but then also what types of things are necessary to improve the facility to now meet the Indiana jail standards. Because if you go through an extensive renovation, you also need to update the facility for the Indiana jail standards, as well as the ADA, all the things with the ADA, especially here with the facility next door here. And what we did was you're going to find a lot of pages in that full document that talks about the full assessment, talks about all the things that would be necessary. And at the end of the day, it was one of the things is that you've just got a lot of needs with both facilities. We looked at what could we even do to renovate the existing juvenile facility to potentially house adults. There's some nuances with square footages that just don't meet the Indiana jail standards, and to be able to renovate the facility, you would actually lose some rated bed capacity, and you start to look at the cost to renovate that facility for adults, and the end return just isn't where you need to be for how much you would need to spend to get a few extra beds. The other part of our study, which is the part that I'm going to talk to you today about, is our rated bed projections. And quite honestly, from your jail side, jail commander gave me a wonderful amount of information that we're going to go through today went back several years. Usually I only get a couple of years in these types of studies. I've done over 90 of these for counties throughout the Midwest, but for here in Grant County, we got an awful lot of information. So that's really going to be the focus. Just to spend just a couple minutes talking about some things that I think is important is in today's jail designs, there's different inmates that are in the facilities than, for an example, when your facility was built. If you go back to the 1980s, President Reagan, one of his main things was the war on drugs. Or, you know, people that, whether they sell drugs, whether they use drugs, they're going to jail, which they did. In the 1990s, we had a lot of mental institutions across the country that were closed. Okay, and then in the year around 2000, Purdue Pharma creating the Oxycontin of the world, we created a lot of synthetic drugs. That was also a problem. So if you go back and you look at from 1985-ish to today, we have more than tripled the amount of people that are incarcerated across the country. And it is facilities like yours were not designed to address all the different folks. We like to say that there's 3 doors. Door 1 is for the bad people. And that's just, not to make light of that, but are the people that really do the hardened crimes. Door 2 is for the addictions. Door 3 is for all the mental health mental health behavioral management issues. Different parts of the jail need to be designed different ways to be able to address each one of those. And when you don't have that opportunity, what you see is that the inmates are not able to rehabilitate and they fail miserably once they're inside the facility. Looking very specifically at your jail, we looked at admissions, we look at releases, average daily population, as well as the average length of stay. And like I said earlier, going back to 2011 with data, which is fantastic to get that much. But you can start to see over the years is that let's take out the abnormal number of 2011. You can see that the numbers from 2012 to probably March of 2020, the numbers were fairly consistent about the admissions that were actually going into your facility. Obviously, just like most every other facility in the country, in March of 2020, the COVID numbers just dropped tremendously. So you also start to see the releases. Releases and admissions typically are very similar, and you're going to see some of the same very consistent numbers across the board with that. But I can tell you in 2023, numbers were going back up. We look at the average daily population. You know, the Indiana Department of Correction rates your facility at 274 beds. They are the ones that they do the state inspections. Chance Sweet does your inspections. He does all of them from Northern Indiana. And he comes through and he looks at a whole laundry list of different items with this. I want to point out several things here about your current facility. If you look at this solid yellow line that goes across, that is the 274 beds. You may be familiar, there's the National Institute of Corrections, which is really a part of the U.S. Department of Justice. And it is absolutely, of anything I say here today, if you can write down NIC, National Institute of Corrections, it is a wealth of knowledge of where you can go and gather a lot of information about how to plan a facility, how to have committees, how to design a facility, different trends, et cetera. And one of the things that they talk about is having an 80% classification factor. And what they mean by that is that your jail, to operate most efficiently and effectively, should be at 80%. And the reason for that is it allows you the opportunity is that if you have a spike in admissions, is that you're able to still classify, as I would say, separate the prey and the predator inside the facility. So keep this in mind. If you had 274 beds, you take away 20%, you have 220. So for your facility to operate the safest for inmates and staff, most efficiently and effectively, you should be approximately 220 beds. Does not mean that you cannot have more inmates in your facility. So if you go back and you look at that all the way to 2011, the green number is the total number of males and females you have in your facility. You've been above that 80% for at least the last 12 years. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. And most years, especially now, but most years you are at capacity or above capacity. So that's just, and you start to look at that, and you also start to look at the needs of the facility, and you start to see that is the best use of our money is to put more money into the facility or to look at something different. So one of the things that is a big driver to me is the number one most important thing whenever you look at the size of a facility is the average length of stay. And think of it as just, that's how many days you're in jail, not how many people are in jail, but how long that you're staying. So what you do is you divide the average daily population, or we call it the ADP, by the number of annual admissions, and then you multiply that by 365. So with this, you can see that back in 2011, you had 22.41 average length of stay. Now it's more than double that. I need to put a little asterisk next to that as well, though, is that if you look that there was a pretty significant bump from 37 to almost 45 in the last 2 years, a big part of that is that the folks that are being released from or admitted to the facility and being released were much more the low-level offenders, which typically don't stay in jail as long. You get the folks that have the more felons and the higher felons, you're going to see that they stay in the facility longer. One of the things that you'll see is that with your average daily population will likely be going up, which it is, I know it is, going up since COVID, but your average length of stay will probably come down a little bit because you'll have more flexibility of the folks that are actually in the facility. So in looking at this, let me back up 2 or 3 slides. One of the things that, and I'm sorry, I didn't note this earlier, but if we project, looking at the trends that you've done for the last 12 years, if we look at how that would project out to the year 2045, this keeps in mind the legislation that we had about 6-7 years ago about how when we changed all the felonies, how it was changed, but also the level 6s that stay locally for up to a year, that into place. We take all that into consideration and we project it out that you will likely, at a minimum, have 464 inmates in your facility in the year 2045. If you add a 20% classification factor to that, you would have a rated bed facility to meet your real needs of 558 total rated beds. That's something is an important note because it looks at how many folks that you will likely have in your facility, plus then the safety factor that goes on top of that. So as we talked about earlier, the National Institute of Corrections and the whole thing with the classification of the inmates and being able to separate the prey and predator, if you would build a facility of 465 beds with no classification factor, this is, we're just going to build for how many inmates we might have. This would meet your 2045 average daily population projections. If you would build for the 558, the 93 being for the classification factor, and we're going to show you what some costs are for that. And then if you would build a larger facility, which quite honestly some counties are doing across the Indiana, especially the last 7 or 8 years, ever since House Bill 1006 came in and changed the low level of felonies staying locally. A lot of counties have built larger facilities to try and address some different things. But you can start to see this would be for some additional growth. One thing I want to keep very clear and make very clear of this is that whenever you look at construction estimates, you don't look at, okay, if we have a 465 bed jail and you add an extra, the 93 beds, it doesn't mean that the same square foot costs for that. You can add more inmates at a lower cost because what we're really doing is that you have what we call the core services of your facility, your vehicle sally porch, your intake booking area, your laundry, your kitchen, all of your administration. Typically doesn't change too much, whether it's a 400 bed jail or a 500 bed jail. It's just adding those extra beds. So as we look at forecasting jail capacity, really 4 trends that we look at. County population trends, your population in Grant County, it's going down a little bit, not a lot. That's why it's a lighter color. The admissions to the county jail is a little darker because those have went down a little bit. But then your average length of stay and your average daily population is dark blue, which we would consider the most change, and it's going up. Again, I look at the average length of stay is what's most important. One thing also in the big thick book, the same sheet numbers are the same as in the presentation if you need to go back and forth to look across. So one of the things we always talk about is, do you renovate, do you expand, do you build new, what do you do? And there's a lot of different things that we go through here and talk about, but we talked about very early on is about the Indiana jail standards being ADA compliant, being most staff efficient. You got multiple levels of your facility. Those are always things that to take a look at. When I talked about NIC, if you can get a hold of Mike Jackson, they can actually come do an assessment for you, free of charge. But it's one thing that they do. I know that last week they did one down in Monroe County, and they've also got one scheduled to do in Howard County. Mike's a very good friend. Worked with him on a lot of projects across the board. He's a great resource. So what we would say in our experience, we've designed more jails than anyone else in the Midwest over the last 23 years. And one of the things that we would say based on our experiences and our knowledge of things is that you've exceeded the anticipated life of your facility, of being effective and efficient to being able to operate the overall facility the way you can with the best dollars, tax dollars. One of the items is what would say, let's just send inmates out of county, okay? One of the things is if you can get $45 a day per inmate, if you can find that, and if you can find it close, you can start to see what the costs are. So for an example, if you took your 274-ish number of rated beds and you said, you know what, we're not going to do an addition, we're just going to send folks out of county at 250 extra inmates, that's over $4 million a year you would have just to house them in other counties, plus the transportation and any medical costs that go into that. So it's just something that's a little eye-opening for folks that are just not familiar with that. So one of the things that if we looked at a 558 bed jail, we just recently finished one, 504 beds in Vigo County, Terre Haute, that I would absolutely recommend any of you to go look at. It's fantastic. Kevin Orm, who's the Director of Construction Services for the Indiana Department of Correction, he took his whole administrative team, he took all of his inspectors to go walk through it, and it's the first time he's done it, and he's been in the business 35 years. But it's something he's just he had a lot of help early on in the facility, some design elements, and I think it's something that's important. So what we've done is predicted that it'd be about 150 to 160,000 square feet. That number could be flexible as your architect would start with schematic design, the first phase of design. You start putting the ink on paper, you start coming up with some designs. You might be able to get that number down a little bit, but that from this point in time, that's a good number where to be at. Before we talk about costs, I think that, with the council, I had the same presentation on Wednesday evening. One thing that's important about the council is understanding the full cost of the project. And a big part of that is staffing. If you look at over the next 20 years, 74% of your cost is going to be on staffing, not the actual cost of the building. Whenever we look at facilities, if we look at one post in the facility, that is a 24-hour a day, 7 days a week post, that takes 5 people. If you look at an average person working in the facility, all benefits, vacation, training, everything, salary, and we say it's $75,000. It's probably not far off. But if we say it's $75,000, no increase in salaries, no increase of cost over a 20-year period, that's going to cost $7.5 million, one post. Why this is so important is that when you work with your architect, make sure you are always doing a staffing analysis at each phase, because 2 things can happen. If you don't design it right, and you have to add an extra post, that could be a $7.5 million mistake. And the last thing a sheriff ever wants to say is he comes to his first council meeting after the jail opens and goes, hey, I need to hire a bunch of people. And I'm like, you never told us this. So just some things to consider. Construction costs have went up, okay? If you tour other facilities, find out for sure when the facility was designed and how much it cost at that point in time. But in the last 3.5 years, costs have went up considerably. What we looked at is projecting out to the year 2024 in the spring. And the 155,000 square foot facility, the 558 beds, and you can see what the cost range is up at this point in time. It's a budgetary number. Full anticipation that number would be lower than that, but you need to budget for the worst case type scenario. Also, there's probable soft costs that come in on top of that. You know, if there's land, if there's utilities, if there's architect fees, legal fees, CM fees, all the permitting, reproduction, survey, geotech, all that sort of thing is another 20 to 25%. So you take the hard construction cost plus the soft cost, and that's where you get your total project cost for the overall project. Soft costs will vary depending on how you bid the project, or how you design, how you bid the project, and just all the steps that you go through. So to me, the three things is that schedule-wise, there's 3 phases of design. You also have to work with the Indiana Department of Correction to get their sign off on all the approvals, which is about 5, 6, 7 months, somewhere in that time frame. Bidding, procurement permits is a couple months, and then construction is another about 2 years. So keep in mind that once Commissioners Council decide to do a project, it's probably 30 to 36 months out before you would ever move into a facility. One of the things that's critically important is that from day one, you need to start talking about, as we've said, those operational costs, those staffing costs. Make sure that you have budgets for those throughout the full time. And also how your sheriff and jail commander want to run the facility also determines their policies and procedures, also has a big impact of how we design the facility as well. So in essence, today, what we've identified is a potential scope, a potential schedule, a potential budget. We talked about the 558 beds being really the right solution. And the next step is by far the most important. I would tell you, do your due diligence. You need to generate an awareness of why do we need to replace a 30-year-old jail, 33-year-old jail. And then that's when you start building your consensus on I'm doing the right thing. So I'm open for any questions. I could talk all day about your project.
Is that, I don't know much about it, obviously.
That's fine.
Your
Fine, sure.
soft costs.
Yeah.
When I was on the school board, we did some constructions, and that sounded a little high. If I'm remembering right, when we did things, we built, so the soft costs were 15%?
They can be. They
Okay.
can be lower. Again, I don't want to tell you 15% and they come in at 18%.
Gotcha.
If I tell you 20% and they come in at 18%, that's much better.
But in your experience, that's what you found that it normally runs, is 22 to 25?
It can, yes.
Soft cost, does that also include desk, chair?
Yes, absolutely.
Everything.
It is.
Soft cost.
It is a turnkey operation. You come in and it includes all costs. Contingencies during construction, the allowances, all the legal fees. It's just like when you buy a house. You pay for your house and then you've got the extra costs that go into that. You want to say anything to that, Jonathan?
No, he's absolutely right. So that slide is probably the most eye-popping slide in the whole presentation. When you add 25% on top of the 88.5, you're looking at 110 million. So sticker shock, yes. Required, yes. They've done an amazing job. Again, DLZ, their assessment, how many years they've been doing it, 90 of them, wildly successful. So in Envoys, we are hired as your owner's technical rep. So our recommendation is, this is the same presentation I believe we're giving Wednesday night. Our hope and desire is that we'll be authorized to then go do the BOD process to find, to allow DLZ to continue going through, working through the stages and phases of the design. When you're talking about true authorization of costs, that would probably be in the $3.5 to $4 million number right now in order to get them to do a fully developed, designed facility.
Say that again, please.
Slow.
So the real number that we would be looking to get authorization to spend now would be between $3.5 and $4 million, which would allow DLZ to run through their normal cadence of schematic through construction documents to design a completely functional operational system.
So Jonathan, what he's referring to is an architect, to be pretty much any of the architects, that is to go through a full 100% design, getting the, all the approvals from Commissioners Council, Sheriff, the Indiana Department of Correction, to do the full design process. That, the geotechnical, the survey work, to be able to accomplish all of that. And that's typically what is preferred, develop a guaranteed maximum price for the GMP for the bot process.
Again, I think one of these earlier slides, you had some durations on here and it was roughly, the 5 to 7 months.
5 to 7 months for that.
First 2 months, yeah.
Easily York.
Okay.
Questions?
Is the 3.5 to 4 million above the 110?
No,
That'd be all inclusive.
Okay.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. This is just the first step in allocation.
It's big numbers. It's a big project. It's likely, when I stand in front of commissioners across the state, it's usually the largest project that the county's ever done.
We don't have a choice though.
They do not.
Well,
Is that? I mean, I guess there's always choices.
But you have choices. I mean, you can always look at it that we're not gonna do anything. You're just one situation from somebody telling you to go build an 800-bed facility and you don't have an option.
Yeah.
I did not design the original facility, I gotta be very clear, but in that Vigo County and Terre Haute, they were under a federal lawsuit on a monthly basis, and they hired us to do a study to help them to get through, because we've worked on other projects where there's been federal lawsuits. You're not there, but let me tell you just what that meant. Every month, 3 commissioners, the county attorney, went to the federal courthouse downtown Indianapolis on Ohio Street, stood in front of the judge and said, this is what we've done the last 30 days. This is what we're doing in the next 30 days. And you better be doing it. Next month, went back, did the same thing. And it got to the point that if they did not do something, quite honestly, the judge could have held them in contempt of court. And then she would have decided what was going to be built, not the 504 beds. She could have said, you're going to go build 750 beds, and the local commissioners and council don't have a choice. So,
And in previous discussions, we said if usually a federal mandate comes in, we're gonna see millions of dollars added to the cost because we're jumping through federal hoops instead of doing it at our level.
yeah. Hopefully you would never get to that point. Everyone doesn't, but if it did get to that point, yes, there would be a lot of additional hoops to jump through.
And so, it's just like anything else you go to buy the goods. If we would have done this 4 or 5 years ago, hindsight's always better than foresight. But bond rating was lower back then. Cost of goods would have been much lower. We're seeing probably do you have a number on where we have been over the last 5 years with cost of goods or cost of material?
You have easily went up over 25%. And it's not just the cost of goods, it's the labor availability.
Okay.
Is you get less people bidding on the projects because they don't have the labor forces. And they're not going to bid a project if they can't meet the schedules. And often you will receive less numbers bids. Good job today getting as many bids as you did on your project. I mean, sincerely, but you have less people bidding the projects. You have less manufacturers making the widgets because quite honestly, from the recession, you had a lot of the big widget makers, especially in the correctional world, they started consolidate or they went out of business. And the last 7, 8 years, after the recession, there's been a lot of construction projects. There's been a lot of jail projects. And it's taken a tax on and then with COVID, it's taken a big tax on the manufacturers. We talk about it. We're involved in other projects together. We don't see costs going down because once the costs get up, people are used to paying them. They may come down just a slight bit, but they are not going to go back to 2019 numbers.
Have you seen any supply chain issues on anything?
Yeah, and it varies all the time. It varies all the time. You know, there's some things as part of a bot process. One of the things that can be great is as soon as you have those confirmed numbers, go order generators, go order the big air handling units, some of the switch gear for the electrical, because some of those can have 12-month lead times. I just ran into something last week where it was taking 3.5 to 4 months to get garage doors. Now, these are huge garage doors, but it varies.
Hendricks County said they ran into an issue, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Other questions, gentlemen?
And I know it's in drones.
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
You can typically, even in today's world, you know, we did elevate it, you know, until next year, but you can easily see 7, 8, 9%, 7, 8, 9% inflation every year still. It just, costs keep going up. So 110, the following year could be 116, 117. It just keeps going up.
Now that you've presented this to us, this particular report is officially a public document. I'd like to make sure that we have one of these documents in the auditor's office as well as one in the commissioner's office. And we will make sure that those are available. Of course, council won't see it till, actually, I think we actually sent an electronic
Yeah,
copy.
we did. We gave you a PDF of the full presentation.
Yeah.
Excuse me, the full document, the 135 pages. I think this one's like 20 pages. This was the same slides, nothing changed. Other than the title page just says Commissioners and Council presentation at the top.
I usually do this as a lecturer, but if one of our people in the back stand up that's a lecturer, I pay attention, and Mike Trevino just stood up. I didn't know if Mike wanted to say anything or not.
No, actually, I was looking to make sure there were enough there.
Okay.
One of the things that Eric and I were talking about is whether or not we can leave this material here. So then if some of your council members do want to come in advance, that's for documents.
Let's just make sure we have 7 for Wednesday night. Then.
Yes, yeah. I think we can entrust that to the auditors, and she
We'll
has to
carry it for you. It's heavy.
All right. Any other questions, comments at this time?
I don't think so.
We thank you. We're going to make this presentation to the council as well, and then at another time, we're actually working toward a joint session so that we can ask a lot of the hard questions that pop up after we get a good digestion of this information.
Correct.
All right?
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, we've exhausted the agenda. Are you aware, gentlemen, of other business that we need to enact right now or go through? Yes, sir. I turned off my computer, but we are at a point of public comment, and if you would like to address the Board of Commissioners, we invite, please acknowledge that. We'll invite you up to the podium to present your comments or concerns. We would admonish that we're here to talk about the issues that have been presented or specific issues for the future of the county, that we do not make personal attacks or any comments about the professionalism of departments or services. We're here. If you're interested in speaking to the Board of Commissioners, give us a hand, anyone? Mr. Solz, you're interested in speaking, we'll have 3 more minutes for you up here at the podium.
Randy Miller didn't address this, but I don't know if the commissioner saw the drawing that the contractor had given the area plan for doing that. Have you got a picture of that?
We did get a copy.
Okay. You got a picture of the actual permit that says Randy Miller did a survey and need a variance?
Did not provide that.
Is that the second page? Oh, the second page. The big page, I think.
Can I give this to somebody?
Just a second. There was the drawing.
Now that is a survey. That's not gonna, that is not, this is not, that's not what came from the area
Okay,
plan.
okay.
This is what came from the area plan.
Okay.
Can I bring it up there?
Ready?
It's different. It's different. I might be a lot of words. I can get it back. I think in there, the GIS video that says, that showed that the drawing was decided to get needed to. They did that work. Yeah. It's not for the plastic. It's already not. This is the copy that they sent, it's in the ring. Some kind of April. Copy of it in there, so that's. Why? I'm being stopped. Everybody. The thing was falling out. They can't do anything. I was told by there that there was no permits needed for me to put a fence up. He said I would request you to send to them, feet off. I said, is there an ordinance? He said, no, there is no ordinance. The town has no ordinance. And then we just, I just keep getting that story from the area plan. When you want to get correct in the town council on what they're doing.
Hopefully with Mr. Miller representing you, talking through that, they'll say it's done or let's get it done right now. I appreciate the added information.
I just wanted to bring it up to show you what was what original to that supposedly was put out. And there's no way to house 20 feet off the alley. Just, yes, I can send that.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else needs to address the Board of Commissioners at this time? All right. Our next scheduled meeting should be the 7th of August at 10 a.m. And with that,
We'll have a Board of Finance.
thank you. We do have a Board of Finance meeting immediately following this. I would say 5 minutes. 5 minutes, yep. And we'll start at 1:45. We are in recess. Thank you. And to my colleagues, I miserably failed Steve's.
Oh, yeah.
Are you gonna take